所以呢，今天身为基督徒，如果你同意原始设计是一夫一妻一男一女，你又同意说婚姻里面这个性行为跟生育子女是盟约关系的话，这个时候你就会发现其他所有的状况通通都不符合圣经的教导。所以当然我们身为教会里面的人想要教导大家按照圣经的原则过生活的时候呢，我们就会说这是我们最推荐的一个人生的方式，就是不要婚外性行为，不要婚前性行为，也不要多批，也不要杂交，也不要一夫多妻，也不要一妻多夫，也不要同性性行为，也不要人兽交，通通都不符合圣经。这样，那问题来了，那有一些人做出不符合圣经的事情的时候呢，我们要怎么办？问题其实是出来这边，比如说在台湾，好啊，那我们就应该要去反同婚吗？你问我的话，我已经拍了那么多个影片了，不要再问我了，去看。但我的意思是说，我觉得我不管是对婚前性行为、婚外性行为，其他任何所有的这种性关系的方式，大部分的教会都是定罪定得过头。那你去定这些人罪，去论断他们，去定罪定得过头，这件事情的本身也不符合圣经。好，这个第二个部分，关于牧师辅导给不出满意的答案的这个部分，我的结论是这样：智商高的人需要智商高的人来给他们答案。在中文的 YouTube 里面不多这样子的 content， 不过如果你看得懂英文 content 的话呢，你可以去看无神论者跟护教学家的辩论，有许许多多，有 Sam Harris 的，有 Richard Dawkins 的，有很多很厉害的无神论专业无神论者，花了自己人生30年40年都在反基督信仰，提出各式各样的问题。那伯恩已经很客气了，他在网络上随便搜寻一下，他一定可以在他的 podcast 里面提出一些更恐怖的一些问题。但我猜他就是不想要让自己太多的观众听了之后信仰动摇，所以呢，他手下留情。所以智商高的人需要智商高的答案。很抱歉，并不是每一个教会，并不是每一个团契的牧师跟辅导可以回答出这种类型的事情。那目前为止，在中文里面 YouTube 里面能够提供给大家的这种比较艰深的这种答案也不多。我好像有试着拍个几个，不知道有没有效，因为我拍得太短了。我都用10分钟来回答一个人家辩论会讲60分钟的题目，所以我都不知道我这些10分钟的影片点阅次数是比较多啦，但是到底有没有回答到的问题，大家的问题不知道。好，第3个叫做教会里面一堆在做表面。这是伯恩提出来的第3个问题。例如他举了一个例子，按手祷告，他觉得说奇怪，为什么一定要按手？他说他相信有可能就真的是你按手在人家受伤的地方，然后祷告他就好了，但也不是每次都这样啊，那为什么一定要按手呢？这件事情听起来让他感到有点疑惑，或者是觉得太做表面了。他也讲到说，比如说你要替人家祷告，你就好好替人家祷告；你要替人家代祷，你就好好替人家代祷。你为什么硬要跑到人家面前说，就硬要跑到人家面前来强调说我有在替你祷告哦？这件事情呢？所以伯恩就说啊，我就很会做秀，我很会做表面，所以他在高中的时候就当了基督徒群体的老大，因为基督徒如果都在作秀的话呢，老大就绝对是个最会作秀的人。我超同意，没错，基督徒实在是教会里面实在是太多做表面的事情了。例子3，他说他遇到一些人不读圣经，然后整天就拿圣灵感动我，圣灵指示我，圣灵跟我启示，拿来当无限上纲。甚至无限上纲的讲到说，好像就是圣灵感动我，你要跟我交往，然后他就傻眼，他就说这什么状况？我是要怎么去反对人家？当别人拿这种事情来跟我讲的时候，那我不知道啦。我见过的所有这样子的教会都会很强调说，2个人的事情，圣灵不会只感动其中一个人。所以今天有任何的人跑来跟你说，来，这位正妹，圣灵感动我说你要嫁给我。这位正妹如果没有同样的感动的话，这位正妹就可以直接回答说，我没有这感动我觉得你搞错了，然后故事就结束。而且这个是叫做 SOP， 这个是应该是所有的教会里面都要教的事情才对。那就是圣灵不会这样子去感动你。各位年轻人，各位青少年，请不要用圣灵感动我什么什么什么去跟趁乱告白 ，OK？ 例子5啊，他说 伯恩说，我以为大家都没在打炮，结果我忍了这么久，结果后来发现说，大家其实很多人都在打炮，然后就在那边讲说什么我软弱，然后呢跌倒没办法，然后就说你知不知道你要跟另外一个人上床之前，你有多少喊卡的机会啊？你在那边，我在那边很认真的守婚前不要性行为，结果后来发现说大家都在打炮，这听起来这件事情对他的打击很大。好，最后他就说他的人生哲学，或至少他人生哲学的其中一个部分叫做 fake it till you make it。然后他就说，但是我 fake 了10年。fake it till you make it 的意思就是说，你在做到一件事情之前，你要达到一件事情之前，你在感受到一件事情之前呢，你就先假装，你就假装它是真的，直到它真的成为真的为止。但是他从16岁到25岁这么认真的当一个所谓认真在过教会生活或团契生活或基督徒生活的基督徒，他说他从来没有感受过任何东西。所以我觉得这个从来没有感受过任何东西的这个10年，才是真正他决定不当基督徒的原因。虽然根本没有列在上面那几点啦。好，这边要做的结论是，没错，我个人也认为，你 fake 越久，就越是会这样。我个人也看了一大堆的人，我一看就觉得说，你根本就在装而已嘛，你根本就只是想要融入群体，你根本只是想要作秀，所以才在那边那边当敬拜主领啦，在那边当小组长啦，你根本只是想要得到大家的掌声跟牧师的掌声而已啊。这样，我是属于就是会去看别人，然后觉得说你根本就在假而已。我个人的故事是我12岁一进入青少年时期的时候呢，我就离开我的教会生活了。我就看到一大堆的人在做伯恩说他在做的事情，那我就说你们都太假了，你们太假了，你们都在 fake it， 我不要加入你们。所以我就有10年的时间，从12岁到22岁，我不想要跟这些人有任何的互动跟关联，我不想加入他们，他们在我看来就是一帮乌合之众。我自己过我自己的跟上帝的属灵生活，我自己去维持我跟上帝的互动，但我不要加入你们，那是我当时的想法。那16岁到25岁算是蛮认真投入信仰的伯恩，32岁他离开信仰，12岁到22岁离开教会生活的我，现在33岁，我是教会的传道人。我个人认为，我那10年的时间就是信仰无感状态。不过我跟伯恩不一样的点就在于，我在面对人生的方式，我至少啦，我到目前为止啦，比较偏向于我人生的哲学叫做 tell the truth or at least don't lie。所以当我看到别人在 fake it 的时候呢，我就会说你们在 fake it， 我不要加入你们。我不是说我从来不说谎啦，我的意思是说我没有办法去骗我自己。我要骗别人我 OK， 我要说谎骗别人我 OK， 但我骗不了我自己，所以我不骗我自己。当我觉得我无感，我就不会花时间再埋在那里面了。有趣的事情是我跟伯恩一样，我在25岁之前，我从来没有真正在信仰里面感受过什么上帝跟我说话，什么领受，什么感动都没有。25岁的那一年是我第一次超自然的状况之下，我听见上帝跟我说话。我这辈子目前为止就这一次而已，我拍一整个影片就会讲这件事情。但是我是22岁才认真回到这个信仰的所谓教会生活，所以到我25岁，我只做了3年。所以我这22岁到25岁3年的这个时间，我就是没有什么上帝的领受，没有什么感觉呢。可是过了3年，25岁，哇，就有了那么一次。如果我跟伯恩一样，16岁就开始很认真来过教会生活，但是看遍基督徒的虚假，看遍教会的问题，但是我为了融入大家，我就跟着做表面，去做牧师辅导严重100分的基督徒。那或许我也会在25岁的时候，在我还来不及真正那一次感受到上帝之前，就放弃了。有可能，伯恩的故事有可能是今天我在讲的一个故事，但还好我12岁到22岁，我觉得说大家都是假的时候，我就不加入大家。所以教会里面的看清这一切的人，辛苦你们了。最后 quote 过伯恩的一句话，这是伯恩说的话，这不是我说的话，我把它念出来给大家听。他说：“其实是真的蛮心痛的，教会圈里面有这么多的问题， 大家应该要一起解决。你不应该听完这些东西之后呢，是非常生气的。讲得太好了，我应该把他这句话就是放在我的每一个的那个，不是负能量了。好了，我有一些影片算是负能量，我应该把他这句话放在我的每一个影片的后面。就是当我在讨论教会的问题的时候呢，我就要把这句话放在里面。就是其实真的蛮心痛的，教会圈里面这么多的问题，大家应该是一起解决。你不应该听完这些东西之后觉得非常生气。所以如果你还没看过伯恩的这一集，听过伯恩的这一集的话呢，可以去他的 podcast 下面有链接，点开来看。好，已经晚上10点了，没时间回答大家的问题了，我就简单的把聊天室里面的东西扫过去。哇，我现在有300多个人在观看呢。为什么我拍一个这样子的主题，观看人数逼近我讨论王力宏的时候，不然的话就麻烦伯恩之后再多拍，或者是其他的一些有名的人多拍一些我为什么不是基督徒的影片，让我可以来 reply， 然后我拿你的照片，就没有经过你的同意放在我的缩图里面，就可以骗来大量的人的观看。然后如果觉得我在这边讲的内容不 OK， 或者是使用缩图不 OK 的话呢，留言跟我讲就好，我就把这个影片删掉。我来看一下他在里面讲什么东西。是啦，我也同意伯恩，他如果记得基督徒只是人，那人总是有问题的，或许他就比较不会那么对教会或者对基督徒反感了。但是很可惜，人家只是一个小小高中生的时候，你要强迫他在一个这么险恶的环境，还要长得直直的，还要不累积任何的一些疑问跟苦毒跟抱怨，这太勉强人家了。OK， 感谢大家的收看，时间到了，我好像没有特别看到在聊天室里面有什么需要回应的东西，那就这样子咯。感谢大家看我刚才发呆了1分钟，不过我也没有任何的广告啦，所以你们在这边看我发呆或看这个影片，我也不会因此多赚到1毛钱。
日までしかも普段飽き飽きするとテレビループする時間次の空の誰もいないやすぐの次は味方みんなに学校が壊れた思いだけを信号 こか目を打つ意味なか赤眼君でがいない口も追いもせず逃亡も不可涙虹が傍聴登録成人君をくれた TV 恨みと希望意味シティ魚とか飛びで見えない戻れないなら一度だけでも確人口がちゃんだつ血をくれるまで耐えぬ無限のループ国響く愛中当てのないいつもぐらい平成はいしょとない花のない叫びこういう個性が一人が終わりない大気今の方が手を振ってみてよ生きてるようで死んでるなら答えて
You find yourself at the original trolley problem and you decide to pull the lever to save 5 people, so killing the one. Then you change your mind because it feels like you'll be responsible for one person's death. Do you switch the track back to its original position, resulting in 5 people's death? Okay, so this is a fun one. It's just the original trolley problem. 5 people on one track and you can pull the lever to save them and kill one person. I think that most people, when they're asked about this, say that they would pull the lever. They would sacrifice the one to save the 5. But a fair few people say that they wouldn't pull the lever, that they would allow those 5 people to get run over. And the most common reason given for this is that people feel as though by pulling the lever, they're somehow involving themselves in the situation. Yeah, all other things being equal, it's better for one person to die than for 5 people to die, But if you're responsible for that one person's death, then when you're considering what you should do as a person individually, what's the right or wrong action, surely being personally responsible for no people's death is better than being personally responsible for one person's death, even if that means more people die overall. I suppose it's a bit like a terrorist saying to you, you must go and kill one innocent person, otherwise I'm going to kill 5 people. I think most people would consider it at least justifiable to say, you know what, I don't want to do that. Sure, 5 people will die, but it's not your fault. But look, it also makes a lot of sense to want to pull the lever, and I think even those people can at least understand why somebody would pull the lever. So this question is imagining someone who is a bit torn on the issue, decides, okay, I'm going to pull the lever, I'm going to save the 5 and kill the 1, but then just before the trolley gets to the junction, they think, gosh, that was the wrong decision. And here's the weird thing. In basically any other context, if you make a decision and then realize that was the wrong decision to make, if you then had an opportunity to undo that decision, to reset all of the circumstances to their original position such that everything goes as it would have done if you didn't make that wrong decision, then of course you should undo that decision. Of course you should take that opportunity and reset the circumstances. But not so fast. Back to the trolley problem. If you pull that lever, saving 5 people and killing 1, and then realize it's the wrong decision to make, what would undoing that decision look like? It would look like you taking a trolley that's currently on course to kill 1 person, pulling a lever and diverting it onto a track that has 5 people on it, killing them. That definitely doesn't feel like the right thing to do. Because look, clearly you are now involved in this situation, whether you like it or not. And this revolves around the possibility that a person has to meaningfully undo a kind of action. Like if you commit an action and then commit an action which cancels out that action, you've still acted. There's no way in which you can fully then just remove yourself from the circumstances as if you never got involved in the first place. But you might want to say, why not? If it really is the wrong thing to do to pull the lever, then why wouldn't you undo that wrong decision? Well, maybe because if you pull that lever again, you would undo the track change, but you wouldn't undo the ethically important part, which is your involvement. That's something which you can't undo, even by pulling the lever again. And maybe that's true, but now we're in this interesting position where it seems like you can make a wrong decision, be offered the opportunity to reverse all of the consequences of that decision before those consequences come about, and still say, even though that was the wrong decision, I'm just going to stick with it, and that is somehow the right thing to do. And maybe that tells us that we shouldn't be thinking about ethics purely in terms of consequences, so this might be a really subtle way to critique consequentialism in ethics. I mean, I'm just going to grant, because it seems this way to me, that once you've pulled that lever, it would be wrong to pull that lever again and put it back onto the track that kills 5 people. But supposing that is wrong, let's change this circumstance a bit so that now you pull the lever to save 5 people and kill 1, you realize that that was the wrong thing to do, and this time you're given an opportunity to go back in time. You don't have to pull the lever again to re-divert it onto the first track. You can literally just go back in time to before the lever was pulled, and this time just not pull it. That, to me at least, seems like it does actually change things. Like if it is wrong to pull the lever, then once that lever's been pulled, I think it would be wrong to pull it again, but I don't think it would be wrong to go back in time and just not pull it in the first place. But does going back in time meaningfully remove your interference with the situation? I mean, sure, in the sort of objective timeline, you now haven't pulled the lever, but in your personal timeline, the one in which you get into the time machine and go back in time, you've already touched the lever. You're involved to some degree. Like, what counts as undoing an action? Why does it count in this case, but not in the other? Okay, that gets a bit complicated, so let's think of another example. What does it mean to involve yourself in the trolley problem? What counts? Now suppose you're in front of the original trolley problem. You're not at the lever. Somebody else is at the lever, and they're about to pull it. They're about to save the 5 and kill the 1. You know that that is the wrong thing for them to do. So you run over to them and you push them away from the lever and you say, stop, don't do it. And because of that, the lever doesn't get pulled and the 5 people get run over. Here's the question. Have you involved yourself in that trolley problem? Are you responsible now, at least in part, for those 5 people's death? I mean, it seems like you allowed those 5 people to die by letting the trolley run over them because no lever was pulled or any action taken that puts the train on that track. But you did prevent a person from pulling the lever. And so, at least in this circumstance, it seems to me like you would be in some way responsible for those 5 people's death, more so than if you were stood at the lever and just didn't pull it. But why? Like, what is actually the difference between me seeing somebody else about to pull the lever and stopping them, and me stood at the lever myself, thinking about pulling it, and then stopping myself? I mean, sure, it's all internal when I stop myself, like I just psychologically move my hand away from the lever, but in a sense, I'm still observing somebody about to pull the lever. It's just that it's myself, I'm about to pull the lever, and stopping myself from pulling the lever. For some reason, when it's me stopping myself, we think, well, that's just not getting involved. But if it's me stopping somebody else, now I'm involving myself. Maybe the reason for this is because a physical action like pushing somebody feels like an involvement. But suppose I just talked to them. Suppose I shouted at them and said, hey, don't do it, it's the wrong thing to do. And then they didn't pull the lever. Have I involved myself in the situation then? Maybe you're thinking to yourself, Alex, look, if I just don't pull the lever, that's just not getting involved. But if I go and push somebody else or convince them and shout at them and get them to not pull the lever, then I am getting involved. It's obviously different when I'm projecting my own views onto some other agent and making a difference that way. That is involving myself. If that's what you think, then let's go back to the time travel example. Suppose that you pull the lever, you then realize it's the wrong thing to do, so you get in the time travel device, you go back in time, and when you step out, you see your past self about to pull the lever. If you run over to them and push them off the lever, that is, you push yourself off the lever, have you involved yourself? Because it's still you just affecting your own decisions. It's just you from the past. That is a genuinely difficult question to answer. If I go back in time and push my past self off the lever, that feels like some kind of involvement in the situation. If I just don't pull the lever in the first place, it feels like I just didn't get involved. But in both of those instances, it's me stopping myself from doing something. So what is the difference? So what I want to know from all of you in this trolley problem, a few questions. Firstly, if you pull the lever and then realize it's the wrong thing to do, should you pull the lever again to set it back on its original course? Secondly, if you had the opportunity to go back in time and stop yourself from pulling the lever in the first place, would you do that? Thirdly, are those situations identical to each other? And finally, if stopping myself from pulling the lever at all counts as not getting involved, why does stopping someone else from pulling the lever feel like getting involved? What's the difference? But just before we move on, remember that I've had to grant that pulling the lever here is wrong for any of this to work. Maybe what this trolley problem tells us is that pulling the lever is the right thing to do. Because if we take that really obvious ethical truth that we came up with earlier, if you make a decision, then realize it's the wrong decision, and have an opportunity to undo that decision, you should do so. Then when we apply it to this circumstance, it seems like given the opportunity to undo pulling the lever, you shouldn't do so. That means that it wasn't actually the wrong decision. Okay, next, we're gonna... Hold on. Hello? Yeah, speaking. Sorry, how did you get this number? You know, one of the most annoying things in my life is spam. And whenever I get this kind of correspondence, my first question is always like, how the hell do you even have my email address? And the annoying reality is that it's because data brokers sell our information to businesses and marketing agencies. This means that our information is spread out all over the place, so that even if we knew how to get in contact with these businesses, it would be an incredibly cumbersome task. That is where today's sponsor, Incogni, comes in to help. Incogni reaches out to data brokers on your behalf and demands that they remove your information from their databases. The whole process is automated, and they will not stop until your data is removed from the places you do not want it to be. These marketing agencies can know your name, your address, your phone number, your sexual orientation, your religious background, your employment history, your IP address. There have been cases where criminals have taken out huge loans in other people's names without those people even knowing about it. Health insurance companies can team up with data brokers to raise your rates based on your online activity. Get your information out of their hands, even if just for the sake of stopping the spam. You'll have access to a personal dashboard which will tell you exactly how many requests have been sent, how many are in progress, and how many have been successful. Go to incogni.com.
我在听 Alex O'Connor 的 podcast.
Alex O'Connor at checkout
This is
to get
why people
60%
hate
off their annual
philosophers.
plan. But anyway, with that said, back to the video. The person at the lever works for a charitable organization.
讲了一些蛮有趣的 trolley
You're in a
problem.
grocery store checkout somewhere else in the country.
然后在这
If you
边
decide
非
to
常
add a
痛
dollar
苦
to your
的在
purchase,
打
the charity can
PGTI。
afford to pay the lever operator enough to work that day, thus saving a life. Do you add a dollar to your purchase? So this is, of course, a commentary on charity. We're quite often given the opportunity to round up a purchase, $1 or $2 extra, donated to a charitable organization that can save a calculable number of people's lives. And the thing is, a great number of people say no, and most people think that this is at least permissible. I mean, maybe you think you should always round up, but if you were with a friend who pressed no, you probably wouldn't think that they were like particularly evil. And yet, this is where we must consider Peter Singer's famous drowning child analogy. Suppose that you were walking next to a shallow pond and you saw that there was a child drowning in the pond. You could easily wade in to save that child, but if you do, you're going to ruin your shoes. And your shoes cost about $50, so you don't want to damage them. So you decide, I'm not going to save the child can drown, I don't want to ruin my shoes. Most people would think that you've done something unimaginably unethical there. Like, not just kind of bad or, I wouldn't have done that if it were me, mate, but like, you're a monster. Why? Well, because sure, it's understandable that you don't want to ruin your shoes, but come on, like, a life is at risk. Are your shoes really worth somebody else's life? And Peter Singer presents us with this obvious ethical circumstance to then ask us a question. What about all of those times when somebody has come to you asking for money to donate to their charitable organization? Say they're from the Against Malaria Foundation, which sets up mosquito nets preventing calculable numbers of people from getting malaria. We've all been in a situation like this. Somebody asking us for just a little bit of money to save someone's life somewhere across the globe. And we say, you know what, that sounds like a great cause, but, well, maybe you're saving up for, I don't know, some new shoes? The problem that Peter Singer confronts us with is this. What is the difference between me refusing to wade into that shallow pond to save the child for the sake of my shoes and refusing to donate to a charity that will also save children's lives for the sake of my shoes? Well, maybe in the case of the shallow pond, I'm the only person that could save that particular child. Sure, but when you donate to an organization, your extra money allows them to do extra good. Like, the Against Malaria Foundation are already out there, already saving lives. It's just that if you give them even more money, they'll be able to save even more lives. And so as far as those extra lives are concerned, yeah, you are the only person who can save those particular lives, because if you don't donate the money, they're not going to be saved. Now, the next objection is inevitably, okay, but if I donate that money to some kind of organization, it's going to be ineffectively spent. That is, if I'm in front of a child who's drowning, I can just save them directly, but giving $2 to a huge organization, how do I know that that money is being spent effectively? Well, luckily for you, there's actually a website that can work this out for you. It's called The Life You Can Save, which is also a charity set up by Peter Singer. And in order to alleviate this particular fear, they created a calculator which allows you to put in a specific amount of money, choose a charity, and then see the actual impact that your money will have. So if you donate $2 to the Against Malaria Foundation, you can purchase a single bed net. Now, granted, for this charity, it does say that the estimated cost of saving a life is between $4,000 and $5,500. So, okay, maybe not the most effective use of your money, but how about another charity? For example, choosing Evidence Action. If we donate $2 to this particular charity, it tells you exactly how many children you can deworm. It's 4. That same $2 could also provide safe water to one person for an entire year, or help 4 children access iron and folic acid treatment, which reduces the risk of anemia by 49%. The money could also be used to test 2 women for syphilis and deliver treatment if they're positive. And so, as you can see, a very real-world and calculated impact of your donation of $2. In fact, one of the best or worst party tricks that a person, I think, can develop is at the end of a night of drinking cocktails or being out at the pub, looking at the bill, typing in the amount that the bill came to into this charity and finding out exactly how many children you could have dewormed had you foregone those particular alcoholic beverages. But it's serious. I mean, this is real money affecting real people's lives. And if you think that it is so evil for me to refuse to save that drowning child because I want to protect my shoes, then why isn't it just as wrong as refusing to donate to charity when I know that that money could be used to save real lives because I'd rather spend it on something else? Like my shoes. Well, there isn't really a difference, and so we should all be donating to charity as much as we possibly can, basically. And maybe he's right, but the problem with this is that it seems to be quite a demanding ethical standard. I mean, sure, donating $2 to charity once or twice isn't going to break the bank, but there are always charitable organizations that you can give to. Unlike the child drowning, which is probably a one-off scenario unless you're particularly unlucky, there's never a time when you can't donate more money to charity. And so, sure, if you've got like $10 laying around, give it to the Against Malaria Foundation. But what about the next time you kind of need to buy something but could in theory go without it? Like, okay, you're going out for a drink with some friends. Could you not go, take the money you would have spent, and save someone's life? Yeah, you could do that. Does that mean it's like immoral to go for a drink with your friends? Because why would that be more important than a person's life? At this point, it gets a little bit complicated, right? Because it seems like I should be able to go and get a drink with my friends and not be like morally forced to donate that money to charity instead. But suppose there were a child drowning in front of me and I could go and save them, but if I did, then like my beer would be left on the side and the waiter would come and take it away because they thought that I'd left, so I wouldn't get to drink my beer. I think most people think I should definitely save the child. But again, what's the difference? Why would it be so wrong of me to say, no, I want to drink my pint, so I'm going to let that child drown, but not wrong of me to say, no, I want to drink my pint, so I'm not going to donate that money and save somebody else's life? I think for most people, intuitively, it's like the detachment, the fact that the child is right there in front of you drowning, whereas the person dying of malaria, for example, is somewhere halfway across the world. But of course, distance can't be the ethically relevant factor. Suppose there was somebody being tortured in the boot of a car, or the trunk of a car for our American listeners, and I had some kind of button that I could press that would stop the torture at no cost to me. I should probably press the button. But imagine that car started driving away from me. Is it the case that the further away the car gets, the less of an obligation I have to press that button? No, that doesn't seem to make much of a difference. Okay, so it's not the distance, but it's the detachment in terms of steps. Like, with the child, I save them directly, but with the money to the charity, it's like, I give it to the representative, and then the representative passes it into the bank, and then the bank goes onto a bank statement, and then there's a board meeting where people figure out how to allocate funds, and it's detached in that sense. But okay, so imagine that car driving away with the person being tortured in the trunk. Imagine pressing that button didn't stop the torture directly, but instead sent a message to the police, who would then send out a unit with the license plate of the car that's torturing the person, track them down, open up the trunk, and then save them. So quite far detached in terms of my effect of pressing the button and the person being saved. Has my obligation to press that button diminished in any sense? I mean, I'm not asking if the duty has gone away entirely. I should still press the
Lavender,
button. What I'm asking is, has it changed at all? Do I have less of a duty just because there are more stages involved? It doesn't seem that way to me. And if it really doesn't make a difference, complicating matters by adding these extra stages, if it really makes no difference at all, then it doesn't matter how many of those stages we add, it will still leave me with the same obligation to press that button. And analogously, it will leave me with the same ethical commitment to giving up my beer to save the child. So okay, maybe it's just immoral for me to go out for a drink with my friends. The problem is that for most people, that's just too demanding an ethical standard. But why? Like, everybody agrees that somebody else's life is more important than my ability to drink a beer on a particular evening. And yet we still think that it's not wrong of me to go and pay for that beer when I could use that money to save somebody's life. Most days of my life, I shave my face. I take a razor and I clean up my cheeks and the bottom of my chin. That means that every so often I have to go to the store and buy some new razors. That costs an amount of money, and if I took that money that I'm currently spending on razors and donated it to charity instead, I could save real people's lives. And why would my facial hair ever, in any context, be worth more than the life and suffering of another human being? Does that mean that it's immoral for me to grow this moustache for more than just aesthetic reasons?
Yes,
Maybe.
it's
and
immoral.
Peter Singer's thought experiment kind of leads us towards that conclusion. And yet for most people, that just can't be right.
妈，那
And
个
this
胡
trolley
须有
problem
个
is a
恐
version
怖的
of。that ethical conundrum. If you don't pay that extra dollar, to what extent are you responsible for that person's death? Put as simply as that, it seems pretty heartless to not just donate that extra dollar. I made a whole video about this a while ago, and one thing that I draw attention to is the fact that Peter Singer's drowning child analogy is incomplete. Because with charity, it's not like you have this one opportunity to save someone's life and then that opportunity will never arise again. Instead, there is this perpetual opportunity to always give more of your time and money to save more and more people's lives. And there's this paper by Travis Timmerman called "Sometimes There Is Nothing Wrong with Letting a Child Drown," in which he points out that this analogy isn't quite suitable. Instead, he thinks we should imagine that you're walking down the street and there is just this ocean of drowning children, just thousands and thousands of drowning children, and every single minute that passes, another one drowns. And suppose it takes about 1 minute for you to wade into the water, pick up a child, and bring them to shore. So a child is drowning every minute, and you can save about one a minute, which means that as long as you keep going, you'll put a pause to this nearly infinite pool of death. Here's where it gets even weirder. There's a complication. a hacker has hacked into your bank account, and every single minute is taking money out of your account and moving it into theirs. Every minute, $10 is taken out of your account and stolen by this hacker. So you phoned the bank and they said, "I'm sorry, sir, there's nothing we can do about this unless you come into the branch to prove your identity." And what if you run out of money? At that point, the bank will start seizing your possessions to pay off your debt. So every minute, they'll come in and they'll take something. They'll take your computer, then maybe they'll take your sofa, then your TV, then they take your car, then eventually they'll take your entire house and all of your assets. So you're on the way to the bank to solve this problem, and this is when you come across the ocean of drowning children. It seems pretty heartless and immoral for you to completely ignore all of the suffering of those children and go straight to
哦，
the
这
bank.
感觉很好
You should
破，
definitely try and save at least
这记录
some
感觉
children.
超好破的。
But how many? Like, how long do you spend saving children and pulling them to the shore before you finally say, okay, I'm going to lose everything I own, I need to get to the bank? Is it like after a few $1,000s? Is it when you lose your savings? Is it when you lose all of the money in your account? Is it when you've lost many but not all of your possessions? Is it like just before you lose your entire house? Like, at what point do you say, that's enough, I need to go and look after my own interests? Like, suppose you spent a few hours saving hundreds of children, but then you realize that if you don't go to the bank now, you're going to lose the money that you've been saving up for years to spend on your honeymoon with your wife. Like, in one sense, I could say, like, your honeymoon is nowhere near as important as hundreds of children's lives. But in another sense, I can say, but when does this end? Okay, so you don't go on your honeymoon. Do you cancel the wedding as well? Because that's going to cost some money, and that's money that you'll need in your savings, and that will mean that you can't save more children. I think in this situation, it's at least a lot more intuitive to say that at some point, almost arbitrarily, we can say, okay, I've done my bit, I'm going to go to the bank now. This situation is much more like the situation you're in now. In Peter Singer's version, this is a one-off occasion, and of course you should save the child, even if it means ruining your shoes. But if there are just endless amounts of children to save, yeah, you should probably give up some of your money. But exactly how much you should give up is at least unclear, and I don't think it would involve completely pauperizing yourself to the extent that you don't have any money left to do anything that you want to do. So in this trolley problem, if this is like a one-off, like if I get a flash on the screen at the self-checkout that says, hey man, like for some reason, you are just now in this situation where if you pay this dollar, this trolley problem gets resolved. Like, yeah, I'm going to pay the dollar. But if it's like every single time you ever make a purchase, you're given the opportunity to donate a bit more money, to employ more lever operators, to save more victims, yeah, I like to think that I would probably still do that most, if not all of the time. But it doesn't seem to have the same kind of ethical force. So do I add $1 to the purchase? Yes, in this situation, as described by this trolley problem, yeah, I'm going to pay that dollar and that lever is going to get pulled, sure. But that's not to say that this example neatly maps onto the real world and the issue of charity, which is clearly what this is supposed to be a commentary on.
哦，快了吧？哦，95%，这样是差一点了 ，Vendor。行。唉。完蛋，我太累了，这么小的目标我没办法专注。 等一下。至少 accuracy 有到65%以上。靠背，我眼睛哦，好酸哦！玩这个东西眼睛超酸的。我不行了，哦，我的眼睛，哦，好，我知道了，我再贴近一点，把我脸直接贴到荧幕上。靠背哦，打不了，打不了，我的眼睛不行了。今天先这样。哎，不行，我还想再打一下。来打一下 Ground Plaza 吧。哦，我的眼睛，靠背，我的眼睛好干哦。 不行，今天眼睛太干，我打这样就好了。